What is up, beautiful internet people? How are you guys doing today? How are you feeling? It's your favorite internet man-child reporting live from his goon cave. The walls behind me are actually not white. But today I'd like to talk about something that I think is kind of important to you that I don't think enough people have addressed. And that's, I don't know what's a good way to phrase this, actually, so let's set the scene a little bit better before I'm going to actually tell you what I'm going to address. And yes, there is a fire in my house, and everything is fine. But anyways, so delayed gratification is a concept I've talked about a lot on this channel. Something I find very important to living a good life is being able to set aside funds, set aside your gratification, and get a bigger reward out of your time, energy, and investment, right? It's important to me that you can do that with your life or learn that as a skill, right? That's the key to success in life is literally just delayed gratification. Store food for the winter rather than eat in excess now. Shocking, I know, but a lot of people understand the concept, but very few people actually apply the concept in a way that's going to improve their life in any significant fashion, right? So one of those concepts I think applies to your own pleasure, right? And so there's a lot of people here in the internet that have, I think, entirely way too much focus on, relieving themselves sexually, right? I don't know any other way to talk about it, but this is going to be the video that I talk about it. And so, anything in excess is bad for you, right? And masturbation is one of those things that if you do it to excess can be very bad for you. Now, I've never personally been a masturbation addict, right? I've never seen it impact people, but I think it's important that I talk about it and talk about why overconsumption or, not having a minimalist mindset with your own pleasure is going to be important too. And so, I'm a minimalist. For me, it's enough to where it's not an issue in my life, where it's, not taking up too much of my free time or not something that's going to impact me. I would say realistically about once a week is a pretty good period. If you're someone that needs to be like one of those gooner people or whatever, or it's taking over your life, like I've talked with a lot of people and, a lot of guys about, what they do, how they feel about it, and what I think is just factually incorrect is there's a big misunderstanding about pleasure and sort of building up pleasure, right? So the same sort of concept of delayed gratification can be applied to your own sense of lust. And stringing out one singular event is going to be much more interesting, much more dynamic than, having, say, 5 in a single day or whatever. I think realistically you should probably only ever really go once a week at most, like, once every other week or whatever. It should be just a bodily function to get it out of your system, more so than, I consider it like any other thing where it's just like, using the restroom, for instance, it's the exact same principle. Get it out of your system, but, there's a problem if you're doing it too much, right? And the same thing is true if you have this need, or if you're so hypersexualized that you need to focus on that. So a part of minimalism is realizing that society is imprinting upon you certain values. And for instance, a lot of people that say that, like, the have sex I sell arguments, right? Have sex incel, like the only measurement of value that they understand is sex. A lot of people say this kind of rhetoric, and it's deeply harmful at a societal level because society has put sex on such a pedestal, just like they associate a dopamine with it rather than the actual pleasure you get from the interaction. It's more about the social gratification, or, I am able to bag this many females, therefore X, Y, and Z, even though objectively premarital sex is just bad for you, right? Paradox of choice. If you want a monogamous relationship, which I think most people do, sex by definition premaritally is just self-harm. There's no other way to look at it. Paradox of choice, you can phrase it however you want. It's bad for both genders. Just because men can handle it better than the other gender doesn't somehow mean that it's any less worse for you. So, think about what you're doing and what you're doing with your body and how you should be acting with your body, right? Because your body's a temple and it's very important. And when you're getting yourself addicted to this and, falling down these pornography-laden trapdoors, I think porn in itself is necessarily the most evil thing in the world. I don't think it's a universal good, right? But, without excess, it's no worse than McDonald's, in my opinion. But when you scarf down too much McDonald's, when you consume too much goy slop that your body can't deal with it, then you have an issue. And the same thing is true for pornography and masturbation and a lot of these things that, if done to excess, are going to negatively impact you. And it's time to look at it and look at why you would be doing something like that, right? Society has these impositions on you. The same thing with material wealth, right? You get a dopamine hit in modern day society. It's conditioned to where I purchased this, therefore I get dopamine, rather than I get dopamine from the use of the product, which what it should be. Your dopamine should be coming from the feelings you have either for the person or for yourself, if it's in the case of self-care in this instance. It should be coming from a long delayed understanding or long drawn out gratification, right? So, you want to put yourself in a position where you're doing things that are good for you rather than bad for you, right? Shocking, I know, good things good. Crazy statement, but you would be surprised how little people actually think about this. Society from the top down is imposing a set of values on you that are universally bad. Movies, TV, media, everything says, sex, because it sells, right? Because it's going to get you that dopamine hit, going to force you to buy their stupid product or whatever. And they've moved away from that recently with using ugly women, but they're still trying to sexualize them in this weird, macabre sort of, neo-Marxist contraption that that's another video entirely. I'm not going to go into it, but it's extremely cringy. But the way you should handle your pleasure should be seldom, drawn out, meaningful events, because it's taking care of yourself. That's what masturbation should be. It should not be something you do to just because you're bored or just because you saw something enticing, right? You need to deprogram a lot of that. And yeah, it's a meme, it's a cultural milieu, it's part of the zeitgeist here that everything is over-sexualized, everyone is over-sexualized, but you have to be in control of your own desires, right? Just look at, say, a homosexual or a pedophile that has an attraction to something specific, right? A homosexual has an attraction to the same gender, a pedophile has an attraction to children. They are expected to, in a proper society, they are expected to not act on their desires, right? A pedophile should not act on his desires even if he's born with them. That's a personal struggle he has to overcome. And if you're someone that's in a situation where you're spending too much time, maybe it's time for you to think about that and think about ways you can start overcoming that and start adopting a minimalist mindset, start adopting delayed gratification so you can succeed in life, because part of how you take care of yourself is part of how you're going to exist. And no one's going to do it for you. Let's be clear here, the vast majority of people probably watching this channel are not in committed relationships, are not, boyfriend material, let's just say. So there's just not a lot of sexual options. So the only type of care you're going to get is going to be self-care. And let's be clear here, in a relationship too, you can overdo intercourse, right? It's all about the golden mean, about everything. It's all about doing things in the right way. And it's tough for a lot of people to understand that, but it's definitely something that people need to start adapting, right? And I at least feel like that's a logical way you can go about processing your own body and your own body's needs and figuring out where your golden mean is and adjusting to that. And it's the same thing with calories, for instance. If you're someone that struggles with weight, adjusting your intake lower until you hit this golden mean where you start losing, and then just slowly bringing it down until you have a normal weight and a normal intake. Right? That's the way you form good long-term habits, and you should form good long-term habits in treating yourself. If you don't want to live very long, if you're not interested in, which I can completely understand, right? If you don't want to live very long, you can just eat to excess. You can just go about jackhammering it to success or doing whatever you want until the cows come home, right? But I think the time you're here is going to be spent, and it's going to be better if those things that you eat, that you do to yourself, that you think, that you purchase, are more meaningful to you. And a lot of it is living in the moment, and a lot of that new age hippie feminist crap about the healing crystals or whatever, all of it's just mostly goy slop. But there is some nuggets of truth in living in the moment, in understanding things if you apply them logically. And there are obvious and very easy ways to understand how to improve your life logically without having to delve into the excesses, without going too far in a lot of these aspects. And maybe start considering them in your life. Not saying you have to, but it's worth a thought. Could it hurt? Giving it a test? Maybe not. Or you can paint the walls white in your goon cave. It is almost snowy season. I am alabaster on the inside, alabaster on the out. No one will be able to tell, right? Blah, 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 blah. But that's just my thoughts. You guys have a good day either way.